The Dallas Cowboys enter November 20th, 2025 in the middle of one of the most complicated stretches of their entire season. Nothing has been easy, nothing has been straightforward, and every week brings a new wave of questions around injuries, roster management, future decisions, and locker room chemistry. Today's show dives deep into all of it. We start with Trevon Diggs, because everything about the Cowboys' defense changes depending on whether the star corner returns soon or not at all this season. Diggs has been on IR since October 25th, and although he is eligible to return next week, eligibility doesn't equal readiness. The front office frustration has been leaking out for weeks. Jerry Jones has publicly pushed optimism, as he always does, but multiple internal voices don't want to promise anything. The short turnaround before Thanksgiving complicates everything. There is real concern about rushing Diggs into a game situation where his timing and change of direction are not fully back. The Cowboys know what he means to the defense, but they've also watched enough players suffer setbacks in the past to take this slowly. As of right now, a Week 13 or Week 14 return feels more realistic. The team will never admit that publicly, Jerry especially, but the timeline, the tone, and the medical caution all point in that direction, and the Diggs situation becomes even more layered when you consider the Cowboys' IR return slots. ESPN's Todd Archer reported that Dallas still has room for 2 more designations to return. That seems like a lot, until you realize how many players are now eligible or becoming eligible in the next few weeks. Josh Butler is eligible now. Phil Maffa is eligible now. Peyton Turner is eligible now. Trevor Keegan becomes eligible in Week 13. Jack Sanborn in Week 14. And both Juan Thomas and Ajani Cornelius become eligible in Week 15. The Cowboys are in a position where they must choose carefully. They can't bring all of them back. That forces difficult discussions about positional need, potential impact, and whether certain players will realistically contribute meaningful snaps as the season winds down. The coaching staff is evaluating every one of these players daily in rehab and walkthroughs. Some of them look close, some are lagging, and some might be held for emergency depth later on. The biggest question is this: if Diggs is not 100% by his eligible return date, do the Cowboys use one of their 2 slots on him now? Or do they hold that spot for someone who is physically ready? A star corner is always a priority, but burning a return slot on a player who isn't fully prepared is a gamble. Meanwhile, the Cowboys are navigating a wave of rumors off the field, especially involving CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens after the Raiders game. Reports that circulated online, some legitimate, some wildly exaggerated, claimed that the coaching staff was dealing with discipline issues between the 2 receivers. Here's the truth: tensions were high, frustration boiled over, and competitive players sometimes clash. Pickens plays with an aggressive emotional edge. Lamb plays with a more controlled swagger but hates being overshadowed. After the Raiders game, there was frustration about route timing, about targets, about spacing in certain formations. But calling it a discipline crisis is an exaggeration. The Cowboys have had far worse internal moments than this. What did concern the staff was the optics: cameras catching sideline frustration, social media running with narratives, and the fear that disagreements might escalate into something more disruptive. Coaches pulled both players aside early the next morning. They addressed expectations, leadership, and communication. Nobody was suspended, nobody was fined, and the team moved on. Still, the Cowboys know they have to keep the locker room stable. When you combine the Pickens fire with Lamb's status as the face of the offense, the dynamic must be managed careful. Then there's the Brandin Cooks situation, one of the strangest storylines of the month. The Saints releasing Cooks in what they called a mutual decision instantly sparked Cowboys rumors. Cooks was a Cowboy recently, he has history with the organization, and he knows the offensive system. But the idea of replacing Jalen Tolbert with Cooks doesn't hold up under any logical lens. Tolbert is younger, cheaper, healthier, more explosive at this stage of his career, and far more aligned with the Cowboys' future roster strategy. Cooks is still fast, still smart, and still experienced, but he is not the same player he was during his peak seasons. Bringing him back only makes sense if the Cowboys feel they desperately need veteran insurance. Right now they don't. The coaching staff likes Tolbert's progression, especially his chemistry with Dak Prescott. Cutting Tolbert or demoting him for Cooks would send the wrong message to a young receiver who has done everything right. The Cowboys are intrigued by Cooks' comp pick implications. He still counts toward the formula, but they're not going to force a signing just for nostalgia. We also need to talk about Dameon Pierce, recently cut by the Texans. Cowboys fans instantly jumped to the idea of pairing Pierce with the current backfield, hoping for a physical downhill presence to boost short yardage production. Here's the truth: Pierce is talented, young, and powerful, but his fit in Dallas is far from perfect. The Cowboys do need more physicality at running back, but Pierce struggled with consistency and blocking assignments in Houston. The Cowboys will not bring in a back who can't pass protect at a playoff level. They've seen how poor protection can sink a season. Pierce is appealing if Dallas wants a low-cost, low-risk rotation option, but he is not entering as a guaranteed starter. If anything, he would be an insurance policy against injury or a potential spark plug in specific packages. Dallas will look, evaluate, and stay open-minded, but they won't force a signing there either. As we move deeper into the show, we shift back to the broader outlook of this team. The Cowboys are still fighting for postseason positioning, but every week feels like a survival test. They need Diggs back, but they also need discipline from their young stars, consistency in the running game, stability on the offensive line, and a clear long-term plan for how this roster will look in December and January. The coaching staff knows that this year isn't simply about week-to-week survival. It's about defining an identity that can withstand adversity. Injuries have challenged them. Rumors have challenged them. Chemistry has been tested. But this team still has enough talent to stay in the hunt. What they need now is clarity. Clarity on who returns from IR, clarity on who contributes immediately, clarity on whether the offense can find its balance, and clarity on whether the defense can survive long enough to get its stars back healthy. As we close the first hour and move into the second, the focus shifts toward projections. What does the Cowboys' defensive structure look like if Diggs returns in Week 13 versus Week 15? How does the offense change if Pickens and Lamb synergize instead of clash? What adjustments could Mike McCarthy and the staff implement to reduce sideline tension and boost execution? And which two players should realistically receive those final IR return designations? At this stage, Peyton Turner seems like a prime candidate because of the defensive depth concerns. Josh Butler could help the secondary stabilize even before Diggs comes back. Maffa offers running back insurance. Keegan and Cornelius help the offensive line. Thomas adds safety depth. Sanborn boosts linebacker rotation. Each decision affects the next month. All of these moving parts make this one of the most unpredictable stretches of the Cowboys season. Every storyline connects, every decision carries weight, and the next few weeks suddenly looked like it had grown a new spine, heavier, nastier, more suffocating. Williams didn't just plug gaps. He destroyed them. He didn't just pressure the quarterback. He collapsed the entire pocket. Teammates like Jadeveon Clowney were already talking about domination for the rest of the season, about a level of physical